Hi BookTube, and welcome to a new video. This is a tag video, an original tag by Sean the Book Maniac called the Alphabet Book Soup Tag (brackets A is for author). So I think this is going to be a series of tags called the Alphabet Soup Book Tag, where all the prompts are a single letter of the alphabet, and this one being the first is A. So on with the prompts. A is for author. A good book by an author whose first name or last name starts with the letter A. Brackets, first names are too easy. So why not say the rules you can't have a first name beginning with A, Sean? So bonus points for a surname. Double bonus points for first and last name. Well, there's lots of authors who begin with A. There's Paul Auster for a start. But it says good books. So I'm going to have three, gradually building up bonus points, I hope. The first is A Primer for Cadavers by Ed Atkins on Fitzcarraldo. Ed Atkins is a visual artist rather than a writer. This is his first book. And it's just an extraordinary bombardment of language because everything begins and starts from the body. Ailing bodies, sick bodies, collapsing bodies. And as I say, the language he uses is, I think, you know, some readers might find this being like hit over the head repeatedly with a hammer and may not enjoy it, but I got a lot out of that book. The next one, Nonfiction, Benedict Allen, Through Jaguar Eyes. Now, Benedict Allen is a sort of gentleman explorer, contemporary, and a couple of years ago he went lost. He went missing in Papua New Guinea, and it was a huge news story on our sort of main nightly news. They thought he'd been kidnapped or eaten by cannibals or whatever, and in the end he was rescued, and he came out saying, "Oh, I was never in any danger, I didn't need rescuing." Anyway, but this was from a TV series of his where he went into the Amazon for a tribe who worshipped the jaguar, which is like one of the wild cats, the biggest one in Latin America. Hence the tribe sort of paint themselves up to look like jaguars. This is what Benedict himself looks like, very, very white boy. And he sort of got involved in all their rituals, drug-taking rituals and trance and all that sort of stuff. And I am fascinated with some of the Amazonian tribes and have written things about shamans and things like that. The book, it doesn't really tell you much more than the TV series, but it's a nice cover. And my camera has taken to falling off its perch quite regularly. It was getting a bit tiresome. Anyway, finally for my multi-bonus points, Antonin Artaud, The Theatre and Its Double, which is a book of his essays on theatre. He was the inventor of the Theatre of Cruelty, which does what it says on the tin. And there's other essays in here about sort of the craft that actors need to do in order to fulfil his theories and stuff. Double points. 2. A is for, well, A. The last book you read with the article with the article / one letter word A in the title. I don't know if it's the last book I read with the letter A in the title, but A Visit from the Goon Squad. A controversial book because it's a Marmite book, people either love it or hate it. The biggest criticism seems to be, oh, it's got a chapter that's a PowerPoint presentation, ergo it's trying to be too clever, it's postmodern. Ignore that. I really enjoyed this book. I suppose one other reason why people might not like it is it's basically about some rock and rollers, and I suppose some readers don't find that terribly interesting. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. As I say, I'm not sure if it's the last book I read with A in the title, but it's one that came readily to hand. Prompt 3. A is for angry. A book that pissed you off. Ghost Wall, Sarah Moss. I need to say nothing more. 4. A is for awesome. A top read of recent years. Well, again, a book that I can't unilaterally recommend to everyone because it's going to take a certain taste in readers to enjoy this. This is Lauren Binet's second novel, The Seventh Functional Language, and it is a hilarious and an intellectual read, which is quite hard to pull both off. Very rare. It's basically about sort of 1980s French academics. You don't need to know their theories in real life because it's more about them as characters and their rivalries and stuff. And it's really, really funny. Just to give you an idea, there's some competing academics, and some of the stuff is true. So, for example, the academic Louis Althusser actually did strangle his wife to death. but instead of being banged up with sort of the French authorities, because he was, you know, like most French academics have no, they're pop culture heroes. So the government sort of managed to sort of, you know, circle the wagons, and he didn't go to jail. He was in a mental hospital, but didn't have to serve any time. So that's true. And the book starts off with an incident where, what's his name? I've forgotten now. Oh yeah, Roland Barthes was knocked down and eventually died of his injuries. He was knocked down by a milk float. And that's how this book started. So again, it's based on a true event, but what Binet does is spin this wonderful tale. But then you go to the other extreme, where one of the sort of semiotician sort of philosophers is ripped apart by a pack of wild dogs owned by another one. So you have to kind of wonder which bits are still based in reality and which aren't. But it's just very funny. 5. A is for Aaah. A book whose title includes at least 3 A's, bonus for more than 3. Well, I'm hungry for bonuses. So I searched long and hard, and I came up with Baba Yaga Laid an Egg by Dubravka Ugresic, which was Ugresic's contribution to the Canongate Myth series. Baba 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lots of bonus points, please, Sean. This was my introduction to Ugresic, and she's since gone on to become one of my favourite writers. This isn't necessarily her best, but it's very much set in that world of sort of interwar Europe, middle Europa, where people take to sort of health spas to cure their various ailments. And of course with Baba Yaga, the sort of Balkans folklore character. It's good, but I think her novels beyond that are much better. 6. A is for annoying. A character drove you up the wall. Well, it's not quite fair to say this character drove me up the wall in here, but it had a really interesting effect. I love this book in terms of what its themes are. It's a book about London. It's a bit about sort of social media and how we all sort of manage to survey ourselves and tell each other where we are so that burglars can go and rob your house or whatever. It's about the changing nature of London in terms of, you know, conversion of property and the gentrification, all that sort of thing. And all of that is really, really good and really, really well done. The problem is the main character who's guiding you through this is an alcoholic. And there are long tranches where he's on his own in his house, basically being steered by his alcoholism, by his addiction. And I did not enjoy those in the slightest. So I can't say it drove me up the wall, because I still enjoyed this book. But every time I was in a section where it's him in his house, sort of doing these deals with himself about if he manages to have, you know, if he manages to postpone his important journey to an important meeting by 10 minutes, he can fit in a beer and all this sort of stuff. That did drive me up the wall, because I just didn't engage with it at all. I'm the son of an addict, although not drink. Anyway, but it's a very good book, and I gave it 4 stars. I would have given it 5 stars if the character hadn't been an alcoholic. And I have to say that the bits about the alcoholism are absolutely authentic and really good writing. Just, I didn't want to read them. 7. A is for Ambivalent, a book you're still not sure how you feel about. Well, that would be this, Such Small Hands by Andreas Barber, a Spanish writer. Very short book, very easy read. It had some brilliant writing, some brilliant metaphors in it, but overall I just didn't know what to make of it, really. It's a bit sort of supernatural. It's basically a young girl who's in the back of her family car that crashes, her parents die, and she ends up in an orphanage. And she's very different to the other kids. She's middle class for a start. And it's, you know, how all of these orphans who don't have parental figures, how they sort of fumble towards relationships amongst each other, but they have to make it up as they go along, because there's no guidance for them. So there were some superb bits in here, but I don't know what the book was driving at, really. Also, its shortness lent against it sort of having any sort of real profundity, because it didn't have time, didn't give itself time to develop anything. 8. A is for anticipation, a book, new release or not, that you're very much looking forward to reading. Well, new release is Michel Houellebecq's Serotonin, which is released in September. I've mentioned this before, I'm a Houellebecq devotee. I know, again, a lot of people don't like him, but hey-ho. And a book I bought yesterday on a haul when I was shopping in London with Celia and Elizabeth of Bookish North, both booktubers. And I've been looking for over a couple of years for David Marks's book Reader's Block, which is out of print, but the London Review Bookshop had it. So the London Review Bookshop is now my favourite bookshop, particularly when Camden Lock Books is sadly shutting next month. No, this month it's actually shutting. 9. A is for Actually, a book you didn't expect to like, but did. Women Talking by Marion Tees. Not only did I like it, I loved it. Made my top 10 last year. The reason I didn't expect to like it is because it's about religion. It's set in the world of the Mennonite religious cult. That's probably the wrong word, maybe not. But it's superb, and I owe Sean the Book Maniac to turning me on to this. Although I think I got different things out of it than most people. Most people get into the sort of the characters of the women who've basically been abused by their menfolk and are sort of sitting around deciding what their course of action to be, because if they rebel in any significant way, they're sort of going to have to leave the religion and leave the community. Or do they just suck it up, which is sort of the expected role of women in this community anyway. And that's fine, and that's quite moving and all that sort, but that's not what I really got into. What I got into is, as they're sitting around having these discussions, they're referring to scripture a lot, because obviously that's, you know, they've had no formal education, they've only been exposed to the Bible. And you realise that it's really a disquisition, or part of what it is a disquisition into the difference between literal language, or literal interpretation of stories and the Bible and parables, versus more metaphorical, more parabolic. And I found that fascinating, you know. And they never really got past it, I felt. They kept getting bogged down as to the more open metaphorical flourish argument, and the more literal. They weren't speaking the same language by definition. And it made sort of consensus really difficult. So I just thought it was an excellent book. 10. A is for Affected. A character or book or writer you feel is pretentious. Towlin. This is called Richard Yates. This book is in a terrible state because it's in my unhaul pile, and you can see it's actually got globs of paint on it because I had to repaint the shed where long-time followers of my my BookTube channel will know I had an outbreak of mould. I had to throw lots of books out. Unfortunately, this one wasn't despoiled by mould. Curse you, mould. But I had to repaint the ceiling with anti-mould paint, and this just got dripped on. This is one of the worst books I've ever read, the only Towlin book I've ever read. I know Dane Reeves really likes Towlin. We're never going to agree on that one, Dane. 2 characters, totally desultory, could barely sort of raise themselves to converse with each other. They're in a relationship, I should say, and they give all these sort of popular culture aphorisms which are dull, and it's just, you know, people are saying this is such an important book or such an important writer. No, he's not. He's very much Emperor's New Clothes. 11. A is for How's It Going? A book you liked by a Canadian writer or one you want to read. Again, I'm going to get a lot of clock for this. Life of Pi, a book that divides people. I loved it. The reason people give it clog is they you know, when it switches towards the end, and I won't spoil it, people go, oh, I didn't believe that, or that's just not credible. Whereas I thought, you know, to switch the reality of the whole book up to that point into something else that I felt was equally believable, I thought it was just a stupendous achievement. I love this book, and I read it long before the film came out. I haven't seen the film. Yeah, I picked this up a long, you know, before all the hoo-ha, really. 12. A is for Anticlimactic. A book you thought fizzled out at the end. I think most books fizzle out at the end. But authors seem curiously unable to finish books in an interesting way. But like Sean the Book Maniac, that doesn't bother me because I don't read books for stories. I don't read books for starting off at the beginning, moving through the middle and having a decisive or an important or a redemptive or a fully resolved or an ambiguous ending. I mean, none of that matters to me. It's not why I read books. So I don't really care. So I haven't even got most books in my collection I could hold up in front of the camera for this. And 13, A is for all the booktubers. Tag a swack of people. Well, I'm going to tag anyone who has an A in their name. I have 2 in mine. But I'm going to also just tag lots of lovely booktubers who may not have been tagged, unlikely as it is, because Sean the Book Maniac in originating this tag, tagged shed loads of people, or as he says, a swack of people. So there you have it. Thanks very much. Till next time.